Okay, hello everyone. My name is Shunichi Takahashi. I'm a COO of LinkJ. First of all, thank you for joining us today. Especially, some people who has joined from the outside of Japan. I'm very pleased to have this event with you. So LinkJ is an organization dedicated to fostering innovation ecosystem in Japan. And our members include the major universities, academic institutions, large companies, and small and medium-sized enterprises. The number of the members are continuously increasing. So this means the high demand of the network in the community. So one of our activities is to organize this kind of event. And today's topic in the event is Japanese startups seen from the perspective of the overseas venture capitals. So in recent years, the impact of startups and venture capitals on innovation creation is dramatically important. So, and also today, we have a number of participants online and in person. And I think more than 400 people are already registered. So these also indicate a high demand, a high level of interest from the community. And that's why I'm very happy to have this event. And probably most participants would like to know what is happening in the innovation community and getting to know each other. So I hope this event will provide the more opportunity to get to know each other and also to understand the community status. And then I think I stop here, and I'd like to hand over to Philip for further guidance. Thank you.
Thank you, Takashi-san. So Philippe Fauchet from 4Bio. I'm a venture partner at 4Bio. I don't want to take too much time before the first presentation starts. Let me just take a chance to thank LinkJ for the very good organization of this meeting. Also to say that thanks to LinkJ, actually, we reconnected in a way with Luca Science, which is a company which we will talk about today, because some of the events in the past took place around the biotech initiatives in Japan, including a Luca presentation. So thank you for this. Thank you for the forum, for the occasion to discuss with peers and colleagues. The speakers today will be from 4Bio, Dr. Dima Kuzmin. His CV is so long that it was difficult to have it fit in the 150 words or 200 words requested by the LinkJ format. So I think I will just say that he's a great guy, a co-founder of 4Bio and managing partner of the company. And we are happy to have also his colleague, Kiran, who came also from the UK to join the event. So Dima, may I leave the floor to you and let you introduce the company. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to share our view on the Japanese ecosystem with you today. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you, Philip, for the beautiful introduction, and thank you, LinkJ, for hosting us today. So as Philip said, we're a venture fund based in London, United Kingdom, and we'll be talking about our view on what drives innovation globally and in Japan, what are the key focus areas, and how do we see the opportunity in investing in Japanese startups today? All right. Apologies for that. So we are at a time of fascinating and drastic change in the way we approach medicine, in the way we approach treating patients. Modern pharmaceutical medicine is about 170 years old. And for the first 140 years of those, we've relied on small molecule drugs, so compounds ultimately derived either from nature or from organic chemical synthesis, in order to treat patients. This is what made all of the big pharma we know today. This is what made all of the Japanese pharmaceutical companies, large and small, the way we know them today. And this is really has been centered regionally around the centers of expertise in organic chemistry, such as Germany with Bayer and Boehringer Ingelheim, such as German Switzerland with Basel, Roche and Novartis, such as Japan with all chemical businesses and pharmaceutical businesses emerging around the areas of chemical expertise. Small molecules are a fantastic treatment modality. They're safe, they're efficacious, they're cheap to make, they're easy to store, they get everywhere in the human body apart from the brain really quickly. However, there are two traits that make them ill-suited to treating some of the largest medical challenges we have in the world today. When you take a pill, any pill, it gets nearly total biodistribution in your body very quickly, normally within an hour. And this means that when somebody has an infection in their left ear and you give them an anti-infective, it's going to go to their left ear and their right big toe and will have an exactly the same effect in the ear and the toe, which might be great in an anti-infective, not so great in a chemotherapeutic for cancer. The second challenge is we are now faced with aging populations and a prevalence of chronic disease. Chronic disease represents the fundamental breakdown of the human body. Something broke and we need to fix it. Most small molecules we know actually prevent proteins or other parts of the cell from working the way they're intended to work. They're destructive. It's a great property when we need to kill a bacteria or we need to stop the virus from functioning or do something like this. It's not a great trait when we want to restore or improve function in the body. People recognized these two traits of small molecule drugs a long time ago. And as the world transitioned to primary mortality and morbidity coming from infectious disease, and now 97% of all morbidity and 94% of mortality, up to 98% of medical mortality in the United States and Japan come from chronic non-communicable disease, we recognize that we need new tools. The first tool to emerge, the first suite of tools, is what people call biologics, the second platform. These are monoclonal antibodies and enzyme replacement therapies that are really now very high-profile commercial successes, with, by some measurements, 9 out of top best-sold drugs in the world are biologics, and they're great. The reason they're so great is enzyme replacement therapies and antibodies solve one of the two challenges small molecules face each. Monoclonal antibodies are extremely well targeted. They will only bind to one thing they're designed for, and they will create that destructive potent action. Enzyme replacement therapies are our first ever attempt at restoring body's own normal functions. And that's been markedly successful in many diseases, such as hemophilia. However, they still suffer from the other concerns and safety issues and difficulties of manufacturing and high cost issues. And most importantly, it's still very hard to fundamentally fix human disease with biologics. So since the early 2000s, we really entered an era where we're able to fundamentally change the way we treat patients. And instead of sticking plasters, we can fundamentally cure the biological cause of their disease. Pharmaceuticals and biotechnology represent about 45% of the entire healthcare sector. The rest being, care providers, equipment, supplies, and so on and so forth. And if you think about what comprises the bulk of sales in those 44%, that's small molecules. If you think about what comprises the top sellers in those, it's clearly biologics. But if you ask yourself, what is the highest growth segment? Where is all the innovation? Where is all the rapid market penetration? That's all advanced therapies. That's all the third generation drugs. Approved advanced therapies have generated over 10 billion sales in 2021. And doesn't sound too impressive to people who know that Hemlibra, or any other new novel launched antibody can get to a pretty comparable number pretty quickly. And obviously Humira still tops 27 billion a year. However, consider that the first commercial approval of an advanced therapy in the United States was 2017. Since then, we came up from 0 to 19 approved advanced therapies across the US, Europe, and Japan. And they now top 10 billion together, the lead product topping 2.3 billion a year. This means that also this drove significant commercial interest and commercial returns from M&A transactions. Recent deals, and going back about 6 years, topping over 200 billion in M&A value, over 400 billion in listings and follow-on financings. And last year alone, this advanced therapies segment attracted more than $23 billion in venture financing in 2021, despite the fact that 2021 has been a very hard year for our industry, and 2022 is an even harder one. We definitely saw the market capitalization grow, although it suffered in the sell-off of biotech. But more importantly than that, we saw access grow and the amount of innovation grow tremendously. Thinking about where this innovation comes from, if you think about the pharmaceutical sales, so where the money is in the industry, then the major pharmaceutical companies comprise about 65% of all sales. But at the same time, the global share of drug discovery is 80% venture-backed. And the hard number is, if you look at the most 10 recent years of drug approvals in the United States and Europe, out of every 5 drugs approved, 4.2 have been developed by venture-backed startups. So pharma, the internal pharma innovation very much took a back seat, and now that innovation is in the venture-backed startups. At the same time, out of those 5 drugs approved, 3.7 are owned by a big pharma at the time of approval. So clearly there is a strong desire within the large pharma community to engage with those venture-backed startups, have them turn the cards over and demonstrate that definitely this works, and after that, acquire those assets. This means that for us as investors and for any innovation community, any country, the most important thing to be tracking is this: venture-backed startups. The innovation and the future growth in this area is now firmly in there, and all the large pharma companies are converting their efforts from internal R&D to acquiring external innovation or partnering with it. Thinking about the relative scale of things happening in the US, Europe, and Japan, in 2021, our most recent full year, the US saw 2,628 financing rounds in healthcare. So these are over 2.5 thousand funding events, whereas Japan saw 110. And obviously 110 is a big improvement on 10 years ago when Japan said 8 rounds in a year. But unfortunately, we are losing both speed and altitude here, because back in 2012, 1,000 in the US as compared to 7 in Japan. Now we're looking at 2.6 there and 110 here. So in absolute numbers is of course a drastic improvement for the Japanese ecosystem. But in terms of the actual impact, would love it to be better. So this, when people ask us, what attracted you to Luca, what attracted you to Japan, why do you think it's a great opportunity? That's the answer. This is a tremendously, fantastically underfunded ecosystem. There is a lot of innovation. There is a lot of excellent science. There's nearly not enough venture capital in Japan, neither it is in Europe, because as you think about these, about 1,200 deals happening in Europe, the actual academic and IP output of Europe is higher than the US. So Europe is about 50 to 60% underfunded. Japan is about 80% underfunded. So definitely we're very interested in being active here. Thinking about the core areas of our fund, our core areas of expertise are very well aligned with the strength of the research community in Japan. We focus on gene therapy. The Japanese companies have originally been one of the pioneers of gene therapy in the early 2000s. Still, a lot of this has been walked back since then. And unfortunately, not all of the gene therapies are approved in Japan, owing to the intricacies of the local legislation and the approval process. However, there is progress being made. Obviously, cell therapy, with Yamanaka Sensei's discoveries being developed and commercialized here, there is an ongoing progress in the iPS space. But beyond that, there is great CAR T-cell innovation. There is great pharma interest in this space. RNA-based therapies, some of them have been developed in Japan. Some of the commercially approved US gene therapies are based on innovation from Japan. So definitely this is an interesting space. Think about the targeted therapies, things like PROTACs, ADCs, and oncolytic virology. There is a great pharma leader in Daiichi Sankyo here with great ADC expertise. There are other companies pursuing targeted therapies. And then lastly, microbiome space. Japan is host to Professor Kenya Honda at Keio, who is in our scientific advisory board, who is the #1 global academic in the microbiome field. And definitely there is great innovation continuing in this space as well, owing to both a strong pharmaceutical sector and a strong medical food sector. So as we think about our long-term strategy and our relationship with the Japanese startup ecosystem, we continue to be focused and very supportive of the early stage innovation that happens here in those 5 areas. And we think that in those 5 areas and investing in those 5 areas here in Japan lies the future growth of the Japanese pharmaceutical industry and of the local startup community. Thank you for the opportunity to share our views with you.
So thank you, Dima, and thank you for this quick introduction to what 4Bio is doing. I would like now to introduce the next speakers, and it's quite actually funny in a way to be here in Japan while the Japanese biotech company we are exposing now to you is located in Europe at the same time as we are here visiting Japan. So Dr. Tsai, Eric, is the CEO of Luca Science, a company in which we co-led a Series B investment round together with DCIP, represented here by Kodama-san, also by the company called FTI, which is also a fund from Japan. So Rick, tell us where you are and why you are not working in Japan, and let us know more about Luca Science and your perspective. Thank you. And later on, we will have also the Chief Scientific Officer who has co-founded the company, Dr. Suganuma, who will be joining us for the panel discussion.
So thank you very much, Philip. So hi, Kieran and Dima. It's kind of surreal. We actually just met in London last Monday over beer and had some meetings. So we're actually currently in Spain, Seville, for a Cell Symposium presentation by Luca Science. So it is actually an honor to be invited to a LinkJ presentation again. Let me just share my screen. Okay, can you guys see my screen okay? Okay, so I assume everything is fine. So I'd like to kind of echo what Dima have said. So from a BioVentures perspective, I always see our investors as a strategic partner, especially venture capital. I think the venture capital like 4Bio and DCI, as well as FTI, or co-lead investors, are not just providing us with funding. They are providing us, it's almost like a business partnership. They're building the company with us together, providing us support and advices. So I'd like to talk about that today, about how to create a global bio-venture starting from Japan, and share with some of you our experiences. So the presentation is mainly going to be two parts. So Dr. Suganuma is going to share some of our scientific advances, and I'll talk about our business perspective. So a lot of you probably don't know, the name Luca sounds like a pretty cool Italian name, but actually it stands for the last universal common ancestor. So about 2.6 billion years ago, a bacteria, the ancestor bacteria, mitochondria, happened to venture into a archaea. So as you can see on the left side here, the bacteria gets ingested or incorporated into our ancestor cell, and that becomes a eukaryotic cell. And this enables the multicellular organism to be able to evolve until what we are today. So out of this evolution, it's very important that one of the processes that the mitochondria actually acquire an outer membrane and an inner membrane. So as later you see, our core technology is actually very essential in maintaining this outer membrane to be intact. Now, we all learned in high school biology that mitochondria are essentially the powerhouse of our cell and body, but it's actually a lot more to that. Recent years, there's a lot of research, especially past decade. There are many researchers showing lights on mitochondria correlating to metabolism, circadian rhythm, even microbiome, and its importance in immunity. So it's interesting, actually, just I think the paper published in 2020 that NASA even did a very extensive multi-omics analysis, and they found that mitochondria actually is a key change to health problem for astronauts who have a very long-term space flight. So I think mitochondria, we're doing our research in mitochondria, but essentially we're addressing the problem of the energy in this equation of biology. So without further ado, I'll switch to Dr. Suganuma to give us an overview of our science.
I'm Masashi Suganuma, founder and CSO, and thank you, Luke-san. So a brief introduction, speak and mitochondria, Q, science data. So a unique feature of Q is that this can be used off the shelf. That reason is structure integrity as a mitochondria is essential. So double staining and electron microscopy of the inner and outer membrane demonstrate the structure integrity of Q. And click, please. Yes, and Western blotting is still show the preservation and the matrix as well as the outer and the inner membrane. In addition, please, here, actual mitochondrial membrane potential polarization is shown by TMRE staining. That is, this figure is show the bright light isolated mitochondria. It is polarization membrane potential. And then, please click, please. Yes, co-culture with a cell, Q have been shown to increase ATP production capacity of host cell in a concentration-dependent manner. They are thought to be due to the increase in host cell mitochondria induced by Q. Also, the target cell are not restricted to phagocytosis. Importantly, the structural integrity and ATP production and effect of this cell were demonstrated in Q after freezing and thaw at -80 degrees, confirming strategy ability for at last 4 years. We believe that the more longer period is actually possible. That is a characteristic of mitochondria Q. Please, next slide. And then this is very, very interesting data is Q is taken up immediately by simply co-culture in the cell. This is HEC2963 6-hour co-incubation with RFP staining Q. This red dot is isolated mitochondria Q. And left panel is HeRa cells, co-culture with Q on 1 hour and washout, and then measuring the nanolive system, this here. That red dot is pleased. This nanolive is Swiss company and frozen the Q and shipment to Switzerland. And after so, this test is done. And only a few minutes, 10 minutes, within 10 minutes is into the cell, and maybe a degradation, so mitophagy. That is very, very impressive data. And please, next slide, please. Okay, next, yeah. And today we will show the latest data on the effect of Q. This will be reported to ASH next month, American Association Hematology, by our collaborator at Hokkaido University Department of Hematology. We create CAR-T Q by adding Q to process of creating CAR-T cell. That is a naive T cell is stimulation is anti-CD3, CD28 antibodies, T cell stimulation period, and gene transduction is CAR, and this here. And Q addition is co-culture. Next slide, please. CAR-T-Q is CD4 and CD8, both T cells. Q addition is increased proliferation activity. And then, next slide. Okay, figure 1 shows is a C-force analysis oxphos, OCR, oxygen concentration rate, is Q-treated CAR-T cells is not only baseline, a maximal respiration is increased. It will also confirm that host mitochondria genes are actually increased in house data. Furthermore, intravenous administration CAR-T cell, CAR-T-Q, to tumor burning mice has been shown significant tumor reduction effect compared to conventional CAR-T. The effect of Q has been observed not only CAR-T, but also in other disease model mouse. And the administration method was confirmed not only ex vivo, but also, of course, intravenous administration. They are the data from science. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunganuma-sensei. Apologize because I just realized the signal going to Japan and coming back to Spain again probably takes a few seconds lag. So I apologize for the delay in transitioning the slides. So let me shift to the next. So let's talk about business and how Lucas Science actually funded our Series B. And from the beginning, actually, for a lot of you probably have not heard about Luca Science. It was established in 2018 in December by Dr. Suganuma. And actually, there's actually a history even before that. So Dr. Suganuma, after successfully exiting his first company, Canvas, back in 2009, he actually established a nonprofit organization called Koinobori. This is not a patient group, but then it's a NPO organization, mainly doing research with universities. So there were actually a collaboration with 8 universities looking at mitochondrial disease and rare disease with mitochondrial science as a activity. And out of the activity, that the technology we have obtained actually came to establish Luca Science. With our help of our investors, actually, we were able to raise $9.8 million Series A, which was co-led by Remages, Inabasan, and as well as Axel Capital, Fred Shane. So along as with other investors. So the Series A1 and A2 enable us to continue our research and development activities. In 2021, we established our Luca Science in UK to form a really close collaboration with University of Oxford, and specifically in placental mitochondrial research. In 2022, we have actually started another joint research collaboration with Kyowa Kirin in the area of mitochondrial disease. And in June, with the help of our investors, we are able to successfully raise about $30.3 million in Series B financing. And we also have established our CMC laboratory in Shinkiba, also linked a facility back in May this year. So as Sugama Sensei was explaining about the science, we have evidence that our mitochondrial Q basically essentially gets into multiple cell types, and we actually see a lot of positive effect in both in vitro and in vivo. Now, there's actually just a very huge potential of areas that the mitochondria can work, as because you think about all the biological process. Essentially, every cell in the body has a mitochondria, and all the biological process we need needs energy support for those processes. However, because of this wide potential, we cannot focus on everything. We're just a small, very small biotech. Right now, we are focusing mitochondrial Q use of with intraarterial, intravenous, and ex vivo in some of the indications that you see in the red color below. So our business model, we are focusing on the mitochondrial Q as a technology platform, as I mentioned before. Now we have this mitochondrial Q that we find is very fascinating and working in many different ways. And like I mentioned, we're having projects with IA approach, ex vivo approach, like Suganuma Sensei have just shown you on the CAR-T example, and working with Kyowa Kirin on mitochondrial disease. So our what we're striving to do right now is to really working hard to elucidate the mechanism of action of Q, while actually establishing POC as a showcase for the pharma to form that collaboration. What Dima was talking about. Essentially, I think in the future we'll be partnering with not just one pharma, hopefully many pharma, in providing our platform and providing some mitochondria. And in order to do that, we need to engineer and actually provide more variety and more specifically targeted and enhance the ability of mitochondria in a different way by our engineering platform in the future. So right now, like I mentioned, we have an office in Tokyo. We have a CMC lab in Shinkiba and a research laboratory in Sapporo, an office in UK. We're collaborating, of course, mostly a lot of university in Japan, as you see here, as well as advisor from the US and collaboration with University of Oxford in UK. So just want to change gear and talk about our challenges and opportunities. As we all know, we are not living on a restricted area anymore. So Japan US, UK, EU, each have its strengths and weaknesses and its ecosystem. So as a biotech company, we decided to think big and not to limit ourselves just within Japan. So how do we take advantage of the best of each ecosystem to help us grow and realize this very promising platform? So I think just let me highlight the opportunities. So I think the opportunities is like what we have experienced with COVID, that we know that disease actually knows no borders, and just COVID proves that. But at the same time, as a disease has no borders, science also is a universal language. So one science that's developed in one country could be applicable, like the vaccine we all received, which really dramatically changed our lives and really enabled me to travel to Europe, and Dima and Kieran now in Japan. And also, just like how we're communicating to you right now, I think COVID has made remote work and collaboration much easier. So now the system, with online tool, and people are very willing to take online meetings. So that made it much easier to kind of cross-region and cross-time zone to have a communication. And actually, throughout our experience, recruiting talents in Japan, we also find there's actually a very high number of global talents and scientists in Japan. As well as when we were in UK, we actually also met many Japanese scientists working in UK and around the world. But there's not all the opportunities is all good, but then there's actually also challenges that we face when we actually try to build this biotech out of the global environment. For example, finance, a different financing system, banking system, just wiring the money alone. I believe Kieran in the audience probably we have experience in crossing the border, wiring the money from a bank to Japan. Has been quite difficult and something that we didn't foresee. Also, tax issues for the investors, regulatory approval for example, FDA, PMDA consultation. They may be looking at different things. And also the public markets, for example, NASDAQ or Japan market, they could have a different requirements, and how do we adapt to that? When we build a company, all those things need to be considered. And also, for example, KPI measuring a company's success in the US and EU, the market or the investor mostly focus on the pipeline development. Successful pipeline development is what most of the investors are looking for. While in Japan, I think the market or the investors looking for early revenue or positive revenue. And that resulted a lot of company or successful venture company in Japan is actually more of a platform company to able to generate income very early on. So I think out of all these experiences, I think we're quite successful at this stage, and that's really resulted from a really good science. I think our sciences with the mitochondria, we're very fortunate that this fascinating technology has given us many interesting results, and that was able to trigger the interest of the investors. But I think also we have a very diverse team of members. For example, I just counted actually our team member actually came from 8 countries worldwide, and we only have 24 people in the company. We already have offices both in UK and Japan. We have investors from 3 different countries. And then we actually have adapted a flexible working remotely from different time zones and languages as a policy within the company. So I think that really enabled us to be able to communicate with the global investors, be able to get their attention and get them to help us as a strategic partner. So this is my last slide. I would like to thank DCI. I think we'll hear from Kodama-san later on, and 4Bio, Kieran and Dima in the audience. And also Harada-san, who's in Boston right now, so also our director, and Anzai-san from FTI. And Remiges, Inaba-san and Fred Shane from Axel Capital lead our Series 1, Series A, A1 and A2. And thanks to all the investors that I think not just providing funding, but a lot of strategic support enable our success. So I'd like to end there. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Rick and Professor Suganuma. We can understand now why your company has been listed in one of the top 5 hottest biotech to follow in Japan by one UK-based medical magazine. So well done. Now we'd like to hear maybe from Shuntaro Kodama, who is a managing director of Daiwa Capital Investment Partners, and to hear his perspective, what you are doing, and also why you have added Luca in your portfolio of companies. So Shuntaro, the floor is yours.
Hi, this is Shuntaro Kodama, and firstly, thank you to thank you to the organizer, Ling J, and to Philip for inviting me to such great event. And I'm very honored to be a part of the great panel. So in this presentation, I'd like to introduce ourselves and also touch on our investment strategy. And this is a snapshot of the D-Share Partners. And we were, D-Share Partners was established in 2014. And since then, we have raised 2 funds. And the first one was launched in 2015, and the second fund was launched in 2020. So, and then currently the assets under management, AUM, is roughly 27 billion Japanese yen, which is almost equivalent to given the current exchange rate, this is 119 to the $200 million. And in terms of the investment forecast, and our funds are backed by the Japanese government fund and also Taiwanese government fund, and also Japanese and Taiwanese institutional investors and also the corporates. And our investment focus is that geographically, regionally, Japan and Taiwan. And also in addition to the traditional VC investments, we are very active on the venture creation model, which is which is that creating the spin out or carve out opportunities from pharmaceutical firms, biopharmaceuticals, and also academics. So that's the snapshot of D-Share Partners. And from this, this is our team, introduction of our team. And we started off with just only these 4 members. And then for myself, after I got the master's degree in biochemistry, I joined NF Ventures, which is the Japanese venture capital firm, which is now known as the Daiwa Corporate Investment for short, DCI. And then at the time, I was responsible for domestic and also the overseas investments, mainly in Europe. And then since the era of NF Ventures, myself and the Narita-san, the Yokota-san, Homo-san, we have been working together for many years. Then in 2014, the life science team, including these members, was spun off from DCI, and we created the new VC firm. This is the current firm, DCI Partners. And then after the establishment of the D-Share Partners, and over time our team expanded, and the new members joined us. And then now as the investment team, we have now 5 members in Tokyo, and also the 3 members in Taiwan. And our team is comprised of the very diverse background people. Some came from farmers, and some came from financial groups and different nationalities. So our team is the very diverse background team. And then also our uniqueness lies in the cross-national network, Taiwan and Japan. And this network enables us to acquire plenty of investment opportunities and provide hands-on support to our portfolios. And this diagram shows our investment model. So again, our uniqueness and the strengths lie in the Taiwan, Japan cross-national network. And then with this cross-national network and also the venture creation skill set, we are able to make add value investments with many various approaches. And I highlighted here a couple of strengths which both countries have. And looking at Japan, so definitely in Japan, there are very great science and great sheets. Whereas the Taiwan, I think I just highlighted a couple of things. Of course, new technologies are coming out from Taiwan these days, and also there are high quality CDMOs and CROs. And then most attractive point is that the talent. And then many of the entrepreneurs and the C-suite people there, they have PhDs, and also they have experiences of studying and working in the US. So there are so many global talents there. So our concept is that combining these, collaborating with these very talents in Taiwan. So the Taiwanese talent is very familiar with doing the business in the US and also China. So by collaborating with them, so we are able to target the global, the top 3 markets, namely China, US, China, and Japan. So that's the concept of our investment strategy. And then this is the highlight of our achievements so far. So again, we have raised approximately 27 billion Japanese yen so far across 2 funds. And we have invested in the total of 28 companies. And out of 28, so far we have achieved 4 IPOs, and 2 in Japan and 2 in Taiwan, respectively. Plus 1 is now in the IPO process. And then 2 portfolio companies recently were selected as the hottest biotech companies in Japan by European online media called Biotech. And namely, this is Luca Science and Norimmune Biotech. So they're selected. And also quite recently, we were selected as the certified VC by AMED. This program is that the total budget for this project is very huge, which is 50 billion Japanese yen, which is almost equivalent to the 350 million status. And the concept of this program is that the AMED provides financial support of double size of the certified VC's investment into drug discovery startups. So this is a very huge. I think that this is a very huge, very beneficial program for us. And then this is in a couple of the next slides, I will introduce the case studies for Japan-Taiwan collaboration and also the venture creation model. So first one is this is Aprinoyer. This is a symbolic case study of a combination of Japanese cheese with the Taiwanese talent. And then the technology itself came from Japanese academia called QST and PET tracers. And then, but the company was established by the Taiwanese entrepreneur called Dr. Mingque Jen. And he obtained the PhD in neuroscience in the US, and he used to work for Merck in the US. So he's very global talent. So under his leadership, currently the company has set up the R&D bases in Taiwan, and then also the US, Japan, China. And the company is now doing the globally clinical trials for PET tracer. And then DCI Partners is the initial investor of this company. And the second case is that the Leguimmune. So Leguimmune itself was the originally Japanese company, but DCI Partners supported the company to move from Japan to Taiwan. And then currently the company set up the research base in Taiwan, and then specialized in the antibody program. And then now the company newly entered the IO space. So they are also doing the very global basis, they're doing the business. And then next slide, this is a venture creation model. We in-licensed the asset of ADC antibody drug conjugate program from Mitsubishi Tanabe Pharma. And we established a new co. And our team members now serving on the boards since the inception. and then promoted the business by utilizing the external advisors. Then now the phase 1 study is now ongoing in the solid tumors. And then not only from the pharma asset, but also we licensed the asset from academia, which is called the AIST. And likewise, we established the NUCO, and then now the operation is now fully controlled by ourselves in collaboration with the the external advisors and consultants. So that's the end of our presentation. Thank you for your attention.
So thank you, Shuntaro. We will now move into the second part of our session today, which will be a panel discussion. So I would like to invite both of you here to join me here. Maybe Dima, you could sit here, and Shuntaro over there, and probably Rick and Dr. Suganuma will be online. Good. So I think I should. So if we are set to go, so I will serve as a moderator for this session. So thank you for bearing with me and with my French accent. So I would like to maybe ask the first question from Dima. Maybe when I hear to those presentations, I think it looked like the stars were aligned to justify an investment in Japan. You know, there were things happening, and Luca was here. There were some good investors on the Japan side. But when you think of the company from your perspective, what would you like to say that has been your interest? You know, why that company rather than another one, for example? What is different from the rest? And I think you may tell us, but you see a lot of companies, so please.
Certainly. So to explain that, let me take a step back and explain the 4Bio model. When we make investments, we don't invest passively. We work on a basis of a suite of internal white papers that we write. So when we assess a new space, say mitochondria or bioenergetics more broadly, or any other space, we've invested in antibody-drug conjugates or cell therapies or gene therapies that way. We'll look at what are the problems that prevent these therapeutics from working in the clinic and being delivered to patients. When we identify those problems, we start looking for solutions. And we have been very interested in the mitochondrial disease space for the past 5 or 6 years. We've attempted the venture creation in the space, which didn't go as planned. And since then, we've been actively engaging with other potential companies. So when we heard about Luca, we started looking into this and realized that Luca is addressing one of the real roadblocks in the mitochondrial space, and that is being able to purify and preserve highly functional mitochondria, because no one's been able to do that before. When we understood this, we invest a lot of time and effort in understanding the capabilities of the platform and what has been done to date in terms of proving the mechanism of action. We're satisfied with what we see, and as a result, we made our investment, co-leading the round with Shuntaro and also with FTI. So ultimately, it's look for the problem. Is this a credible solution? If it looks like one, do in-depth diligence to understand the technological aspect. If it is, underwrite the platform, then help the company build products on that platform.
So thank you very much, Dima. And I think it's answering very precisely one of the questions we receive online. Please don't hesitate if you have some more questions to ask. Actually, the same question I would like to ask to Shuntaro, please. Maybe give us your perspective. You know, also, how do you make your investments? You know, why did you decide to invest in Luca? And also, with some, retrospective perspective, now, do you think it was a good idea to invite those people based outside of Japan from 4Bio onto the board of the company? How do you think it works so far?
Yeah, in terms of the investment into the Luca, I was personally interested in the approach to impact the intracellular regenerative, recycling and regenerative cycle, and which causes many diseases. And then definitely this mitochondria is one of the key modalities to address these, these problems. So this is why I have been very, watching this intracellular, recycling the mechanism or regenerative, mechanism for many years. So, and definitely then I felt that okay, mitochondria fit my interest. Then I just decided to make an investment. And in terms of the inviting the 4Bio, I think, as you know, our business is global. So without access to the global markets and also the collaborating with international VCs, we are not able to scale companies bigger. So this is why definitely the collaborating with international VCs is very critical for us to scale companies bigger. And then always honestly, it's quite rare to see such global syndicates in Japan before, and there are some cases before, but just a few, because of there are so many differences in the culture, mindset, and also the it barrier. So for many reasons, so far, unfortunately, we have not made it happen. But in the case of Luca, I think that in terms of the management team, so like the Sugama Sensei and the Rick, so they have very global mindset, and also on the investor side, so these are partners, FTI, Axial, Lemges, all of them are very international VCs, and they have very global mindset. And by looking at the 4Bio's portfolio, so I think we instantly realized that okay, so 4Bio has the very deep knowledge on this sector and the global network, and definitely this is very beneficial for Luca and our investors to to make the Luca bigger, globalized. So this is why I think that this collaborating with 4Bio is definitely 4Bio is the ideal partner for Luca, and also the very beneficial for I think the entire Luca team and also the investors.
Thank you, Shuntaro. And maybe in the similar vein, may I ask Luca, so I don't know, Rick or Suganma Sensei, to provide some insight from your side. What do you think so far the collaboration has been? You have seen this investment being effected in June. So we have been living together now in a board where you have some non-Japanese sitting, and you have to work with a shareholder which is based in the UK. So how do things work in practice? You touched a bit on it during your the last slides that you presented, but maybe to give us your feedback on this.
No, it really has been great, actually, I have to say, working with all the VC partners. Like I say, I think all the VC partners have very deep either business background, like Philip yourself, really giving us a lot of business BD advice in terms of how to drive our strategy, as well as science. For example, we had a really deep discussion with Dima back in London, and I remember last December, when I visited Boston, I talked to Yuri, who's another venture partner for 4Bio, and we had a very in-depth discussion about the science. So I think it's really through these type of discussion and constantly checking from our VC partners' perspective, because they see a lot of companies, and especially I think with the global VCs like Kodama-san or Dima here, they see a lot of companies, their portfolio companies, how they struggle, how they become successful, and then they provide us those inputs, make us better. So I think it's really valuable from our perspective. So it's been great, and I think we really benefit from our VC partners introducing us the talent that is necessary, the connection that's necessary. And we have really fruitful discussion about the direction, the scientific direction that we're supposed to go and the development. So I really appreciate, really, like I said before, we really work as a team to co-create this, using the science to co-create this company.
So I guess Sugano-sensei agrees, or
Yeah.
you want to add anything? Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you. So I mentioned about the internal side in Zuluka. So I aim to be a global biotech company. So this is aim. So therefore, one of our goals was to be a recognized global standard in the science and business to receive investment from foreign VCs. So I'm very happy and appreciate so for bio investment for Series B. In addition, so many people at Luca are non-Japanese and have arrived outside of Japan, and now so 8 countries members. And CEO Rick has also worked for a global company, and he is, of course, is foreigner, but very well known in Japan. And so, like in the world, in other world, foreigner who seem to be Japanese, I believe it is very good to have such people leading in Japanese early stage venture companies. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. So let me move to another topic, which is the one of innovation and innovation from Japan. So starting from Dima, you mentioned during your introduction to for Biocapital the very focused strategy to look at 5 pillars of advanced therapies, which are core to what you do. When you look at those pillars, and you also touch on it, but do you see more innovation coming from Japan? Is there some place where you would think that beyond Luca there are other things coming, without describing necessarily the companies themselves, but more the areas where you recognize innovation at the moment?
Certainly. So thinking about the particular technology platform, cell therapy is the most obvious one. I'm not going to inspire anyone with a new insight here. The iPS platform is very strong in Japan. Manufacturing and working on other cell types for manufacturing has also been a very strong theme for the Japanese companies. Beyond that, I think there are several areas where new innovation is being globally recognized. One is around engineering gene editing tools. There are several companies in and around the novel nucleases and radically novel approaches to gene editing that have been successful. They have attracted global attention and have done partnering deals. There are CAR-T companies that have done partnering deals. And more broadly, I think what we see at the moment is there is a bit of a disconnect between where the research is and where the innovative environment, the ecosystem is. The research is extremely well published. There are laboratories in Japan with annual budgets of over $20 million. There are laboratories that publish in Science, Nature, Cell, New England Journal of Medicine several times a year, which is incredibly impressive for anywhere in the world. Any MIT lab would kill for that type of publication and that type of budget. At the same time, the ecosystem to support those labs, to share their research in a translational manner and take that forward is not always there. At the same time, there is a reluctance, a resistance even, to working with global partners and with global startups. So we're seeing a lot of innovation in the gene editing space that came from the US labs, ultimately end up in the public domain, published without patents and not go anywhere. Another area that's been very strong is design of biologics and antibody-drug conjugates, bi- and trispecifics. And again, here a lot of innovation ended up maybe with pharma partners or with license out or without startups for relatively low impact. So ultimately, what we see is there's lots of great research, although unfortunately Japan's been coming down in terms of proportion of highest cited publications and so on. But there's still a lot of potential. But what we think is missing is that link, maybe link J or maybe something else, really connecting those labs to the translation-minded people and organizations, and unlocking the potential of technologies like gene editing, CAR-T, and mitochondrial technology, and so on.
Thank you, Dima. And if I may ask Shutao for the same type of question, but also maybe to piggyback on what you just said, and do you think that those collaborations, as the one we do around Luca, could allow to unlock more opportunities from Japan and expose them to growth not only in Japan, but also outside of Japan, keeping the timelines that are important in this very competitive world? So you have mentioned before the possibilities to find seeds and technologies not only in Japan but also in Taiwan, and I think you have also some examples in Korea in the past. So based on your observations, what are the hot trends at the moment that you would be, without disclosing your secrets of course, but what would you be looking at nowadays?
And we are interested in the target therapies first, and then so far we have invested in the many diverse modalities, including CAR-T, ADC, and peptide drug conjugate, PDC, and so many modalities we have invested so far. And recently, I am personally interested in the radiotherapy, which is the conjugate of the binder to a specific target, and the radioisotope. And then, so definitely, target therapy is still very interesting. But at the same time, this is a very highly competitive. So unless there is something new and the difference in points, it's really tough to win. So every time we investigate in these target therapies, we are always looking for something new in this space. And then the second one is that, as I mentioned, I'm very interested in again, so the approach to the impact, the intracellular regenerative system, which causes many diseases. And then I think autophagy is one of the areas, I guess. And then ultimately, this field is linked with the longevity and the aging. So I think this field and science is very interesting to me.
Thank you very much. And let me take this opportunity to ask also similarly, but this time from Suganuma Sensei, because himself an innovator, he must be meeting a lot of other innovators from or potential innovators from Japan. So without focusing now either on IPS or mitochondria, when you think about other connected activities that you can see, where do you see interesting things coming from early research in Japan?
Thank you, Philip. So I'm always thinking about mitochondria. This is 100%. So except mitochondria and not so some knowledge, but little comment. So already Dima-san mentioned, and Japan is strong with organic synthesis historically. Many companies has a large blockbuster. That is real. In fact, we have won the Nobel Prize in the basic research, chemical research. So we have, against the background, I believe that small molecule and medium size molecule drug discovery is now still important. However, the next generation for drug discovery based, which is computational chemistry and high-speed information processing, not the old method. So I believe that the key to this collaboration is that basic system and Japanese computer biotechnology big company. So one point, and especially with regard to cell therapy as a representative mesenchymal stem cell such as, I believe, that's only I believe, that we have enter so-called post-cell therapy phase. I believe that the focus will shift from cell therapy to organ therapy with more clearly defined active ingredients. So these include, of course, extracellular, vesicle, and exosome, and some mitochondria. So this area, we must not forget that they also have a potential as a DDS delivery system using CAR to replace the virus in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suganuma Sensei. So I have another question, which would be this time about the environment that we see develop in Japan to support more the startups, the biotech companies, and with some measures taken by the Japanese authorities. First, I would like to ask Rick from his perspective, as a CEO of a startup in Japan, what are your practical needs, beyond the financing that you can get from investors like your current shareholders and some of them here in the room? What are the difficulties? What are the things that you think could help your company go quicker? Is it on the regulatory side? Is it on the another part of the ecosystem? Give us some of your learnings and what kind of maybe request or advice you would have for the Japanese authorities as a real startup.
Thank you, Philip. I think we all know that Prime Minister Kishida actually last year really one of the policies really focused on startup in Japan. Having been working in this space for the past 2-3 years, and last year actually, for our fundraise, actually I traveled to the US and I went to San Francisco, San Diego, Boston, I think this time visited London. And what I felt the most dramatic difference between Japan and the US or EU is the people, actually. And it's not lack of talent or not lack of good scientists, but I think it's a lack of motivation to join a bio venture. Because as we're building a company, we're very fortunate. Actually, we're able to gather many diverse talent from different countries and scientists, but overall still a struggle when we try to hire the right skill set in regulatory, in CMC, for example, or even scientists, or even operations specialists. It's just that there are a lot of good talents in Japan, but everybody's really, I think, for lack of a better word, conservative. They want to stay in a big company, be associated with a big name, feel comfortable and secure in that regard, and then see bioventure as really risky and something that's not very attractive. But at the same time, I know a lot of my colleagues, former colleagues from big company, they have a very strong desire to do something interesting, to have more venture. But I think it's that conservative mentality kind of put them back and say, well, maybe how other people will see me working in a venture may not be so glamorous as associated with a big pharmaceutical company name. And I attribute that to, so first we start with people, but then attribute that to success. Because like Dima pointed out, with the amount of deals and the amount of fundings that we see in Japan or successful biotech, we still lag far behind between Europe and the US. So because of lack of success, there's lack of incentive for people to have incentive to join biotech. So I think to really get the ecosystem going, we have to create successes in Japan. And I hope Luca can be one of that example, quote unquote, people call unicorn. If we actually can have more unicorn coming out of Japan, having that success, then we have more talent willing to join biotech, and then we can really get that ecosystem going. In Tokyo, which is, we're not lacking good scientists or good people. It's just that we lack motivation. But in order for our company to be successful, I think another key factor is speed. What I observed, the speed in the US or Europe, is the regulatory agency actually understands that. and they're willing to take the risk and take responsibility and risk to help bioventure because I understand the nature of business. Because I see so many biotech in Japan, they have a very stable maybe revenue for 10 years, but then I think the speed is most essential for biotech, because after 10 years, your IP runs out. So it's not possible to develop a certain product for 10 years and then get into phase 2. By the time you get to phase 3, the patent already ran out. So in order to race with speed, we really need our regulatory agencies, our government to be more flexible to really foster the startup environment. I think that's just my personal opinion.
Thank you, Rick. And similarly, maybe Shuntaro, you may have a comment on this, because DCIP is one of the few VCs in Japan that have been recognized by the Japanese authorities, as you mentioned it before, certified to support the project for the strengthening of the drug discovery venture ecosystem, as it is labeled. So what does it mean in practice, and how do you see this measure to have an impact, if any? Do you think it can solve some of the challenges that are faced by the drug discovery ventures in Japan, or do you think it's only one measure among others? What do you think could be the hurdles to implement that, and how will it be rolled out? You know, what is your practical, non-political viewpoint?
Yeah, firstly, AMED project is the potentially could be a game changer. So again, firstly, the budget is huge. So the budget is as I mentioned, the 550 billion Japanese yen, which is almost equivalent to the 350 million US dollars. And if we could leverage the AMED support, definitely we can secure the big size of the budget. And then also let's say if we put the $10 million into the specific company, and if this company luckily successfully selected by AMED, then the selected AMED will provide the $20 million to this company. So meaning that by leveraging the AMED support, we can leverage we can increase our the size of the investment almost the triple. So this is a very huge. And of course, there are some requirements and conditions which we have to meet, and also the selection processes we have to pass. But and also one of the conditions is that the project should be something related to the infectious diseases. But it's still some hurdles. But if we can leverage definitely AMED grant, definitely this could be a game changer. So again, so in Japan, unfortunately, the typical investment size of the VCs much smaller than the US investors. I think roughly 1/10. This is investment size in Japan. But by obtaining the AMED grant support, so definitely this could be a game changer. So anyway, this industry always needs the money, capital. So
thank you, Shuntaro. And maybe that reminds me of a slide that was commented by Dima, where he was showing that 80% more or less of the innovation is identified by VCs in the world, and big pharma is not contributing so much into this early innovation stage, but has a role to play later on. So you could think that VCs with more money in Japan would be able to play a similar role potentially. But I would like to ask Dima, why is that so? Why VCs can find those kind of nuggets, and why big pharma with big number of people and good scientists also cannot find them? Is it because of risk appetite? Is it for other reasons? So what are your views on that?
There are several reasons. I think one is the incentive. Big pharma as an organization earns when the drugs are sold commercially. But a biotech venture fund as an organization earns when a big pharma acquires a company. So ultimately, the intent for us and our driving goal is to find something a big pharma will need. Whereas for big pharma, the driving goal is to generally find something that will be successful. It's a harder task in a way that they're facing. So because of this, they're externalizing their risk management to venture funds. And many pharma companies actually back venture funds as limited partners. And we're blessed to work with Kiran as a very supportive strategic investor. Other funds have other partners. Definitely, this is a big focus for them, using us as an external scout and risk manager. The other approach is you will see that most venture funds have areas they are interested in or specialized on. And this allows us to build and retain specialist expertise that has a longer institutional memory than a big pharma. Because big pharma are very changeable internally as organizations, as things ebb and flow, whereas when we pick a focus area, we'll stay in that focus area for 20, 30 years. And we keep accumulating that knowledge.
Thank you. And maybe a question I see which you could answer on the go is one of the people online is saying that agreeing with you on the disconnect between VC investors and researchers sometimes. And from the viewpoints of biotech, academia, or researchers, what is missing, challenges or motivations in the chain to keep you connected with the commercial side?
It's a recognition that it's a different skill set. Being able to take a research platform or research data and translate this into a commercial therapy is a large suite of interlinked professional skill sets people perfect over a lifetime. You cannot expect an academic professor or a junior fellow or even a head of a research institute to understand in depth how to translate, clinically develop, regulatory approve, and commercialize a product. This is not their job. And so it is very important to be able to link up with people who understand how to do it and to build a supportive ecosystem that lets those people access academic expertise and academic data, and at the same time lets the academics access those. Venture funds are thus far the best tool we have for that. It's been validated by the US ecosystem, by the European ecosystem, and also by the Chinese ecosystem. Venture fund is a group of former or current academics and physician scientists and current or former pharma and banking and legal professionals that are interpreters. A venture fund is an interpreter that can talk to an academic, talk to a pharma, talk to a service provider, and build a common language and drive that discussion. This is the real value add from venture funds to the ecosystem beyond the capital. And thus far, we don't have anything better. Maybe in 10 years, we'll all be obsolete, but not at the moment.
Thank you very much. And maybe one of the last questions to Rick. And as you are traveling around the world, you must have noticed that the exchange rates against the Japanese yen have not been progressing in the right direction. So without joking, what is the impact for a biotech like a startup like yours, like Luca, of the evolution of the currencies at the moment? You know, is it affecting you, or is it creating any other, or is it more COVID than the exchange rates? How do you live through this?
No, I think it's actually a great opportunity for biotechs in Japan. Let me put it this way, because when I was calculating our Series B investment, I was quite shocked because in Japanese it's 38.7 oku, right? We thought that's a lot of money because if I just do my kind of back of my head calculation in the old days, I thought that's equivalent to about $35 million usually, right? But then when I did a calculation with the exchange rate, I was back in June, which is 135, it was 30 million. Now it's probably dropped below $30 million. So that would be like around 28 mil or something, right? And that's a tremendous opportunity for foreign investors because Japan have a lot of, like Dima and Shintaro was commenting, there's a lot of excellent science in Japan. And then if we actually can promote ourselves enough, and the scientists, I cannot tell you how much the salary are getting paid, but they are extremely, how should I say, cost effective. Excellent scientists, and then compared to the ones in Boston, San Francisco, they do great work, and then they deliver so much more value for the investment, for the investors. So I believe actually it's a tremendous opportunity for us to really advertise and reach out to Japan, because actually investing with yen, of course, that don't feel any difference, but you think about how we can attract US investors or European investors. To them, it's a bargain right now. It's a bargain sale for Japanese technology. So how can we get them to help invest? And then not only just the funding, but also I think what I mentioned early on about the strategic support is also a sense. So really for Japan to be able to venture out, not just Japan, but globally. And the reason I say that is, of course, I mean, we can be successful within Japan because Japan has a very self-sustained ecosystem. There's a big pharma in Japan. There's enough market in Japan. But you think about the disease, as I mentioned earlier, has no boundaries, right? So the science also is universal. If we have a good solution, eventually we'll have to export this to the world. And we actually, Lucas Science, we made a very conscious effort early on to make all our slides and our official language in English. And the reason is, if we believe in our science and believe this will be of value to the world, we will have to present this to the world. And we'll have to work with global pharmas. And so knowing that, we prepare ourselves even from the very beginning, using English as a common language, and having global talent so we can export the solutions globally. So now that actually comes in handy, because now we actually be able to contact global investors. And I think we're that much attractive now, because especially the value for the money they have to pay, especially with the exchange rate.
Thank you, Rick. I know we are nearly over time, but let me ask very quickly, maybe Dima, last question. You are kicking off or very close to the first close of your third venture fund now. May I ask you if you have plans to add any Japanese innovation in the next fund?
Oh, absolutely. So we wouldn't be able to do Luca without Japanese partners. Of course, we're not ready, despite Philip, your presence here, to lead a deal in Japan on our own. We would like to rely on our close ties with DCI and others as we think about this, but we are actively looking at both venture creation in Japan in partnership with local investors, as well as on seed and Series A investing. We see great promise. We see some really interesting opportunities. We've been privileged to work with fantastic entrepreneurs and partners thus far, and have seen some really, really exciting signs as well. We are continuing the dialogue with local pharma. They're very interested in what we do. So definitely looking to add more over the next few years.
Well, thank you very much. Sorry, I think I need to give some time for the closing remarks by Mr. Takahashi. Sorry for being a bit running over.